For many businesses, it's important to create a segue that allows your customer base or the audiences that you're looking to engage in a way that aligns your business or your services and products with the expectations for customers. And what we often see is people or businesses giving away things like a free estimate, a free quote, or anything of that nature. Today's guest has a unique way that leverages a little bit of a different strategy, but increases efficiency and profitability without having to, let's say, give away free estimates or free quotes in the process, which is always a great thing for business. I'd like to welcome Barry Randall to the conversation today and to the virtual summit. So we're really excited to have you, Barry.
Excited to be here, Ken.
Awesome. I know that you have a long presentation on exactly what I just said, which was not giving away free stuff, which is always what we want to hear. We'd love to learn a little bit more about what your research and development process was and how you've come to fruition with a different process for businesses.
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to share that today. So, do you want me to dive into the presentation right now?
Yeah, let's go. Let's kick it off.
Let's go. All right. I started out as a landscape gardener a number of years ago. And, like everybody else in trades-related businesses, serving home service businesses, before long, I found myself kind of treading water and not really getting too much for the effort that I was putting in. And after about a year and a half of doing this, I ended up £90,000 here in the UK, £90,000 in debt, trying my best to, provide some stuff for my family. And then I met just through magic or chance, divine inspiration, intervention, whatever you want to call it. I met my first mentor, introduced me to marketing. And this is a guy called Alan Brighton. And he told me, business is easy. You're making this really difficult for yourself. And he gave me this bit of philosophy that I learned came from Jim Rohn. And it was for things to change, first, you have to change. Or that's where I first got this from. So I figured that if I was going to make this work, I was going to have to do something different. And he introduced me to a book called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. I'd never heard of anything like this before. I was a typical contractor who, felt like everything that he needed to do was with his hands rather than with his brain. So I realized through reading this book that systems kind of run businesses, not people. But if you haven't got any data to analyze what you're doing with your business, then obviously you don't know how to change it. And if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And if you can't manage it, you can't improve it. I realized that nothing kills a good story like data was a quote that I heard. So I figured out what is the thing that I dislike doing most as a business owner that also takes up most of my time. I realized that the thing that I really didn't enjoy doing was quoting or estimating or providing bids. Specifically, I didn't like providing free quotes or free estimates, free bids. So I conducted a bit of a survey around this because the people that I worked for, the people that I was a subcontractor for, all the different businesses that I worked for in the past, all had this issue with kind of lumpy sales processes. So one time they're making a lot of sales, next time they're making no sales. So I wanted to figure out what was happening. So I conducted a bit of a survey to find out how much people were leaving on the table. And I did this around competitors and people in similar businesses to mine to figure out what it was that was the problem behind this free quoting. I did some research. I understood that free quoting, free bidding, free estimates was something that people did to compete with bigger organizations. When I found that bigger organizations had less personal touch, so I figured, why can we change that so that we did a personal touch rather than a free quote? So I did this survey and I asked, and 89 people completed this survey, and 94.4% of those people said that they did free quotes. And only the 5.6% of people that said they didn't do free quote was enough for me to have proof that I could change the way that we all did this in business. So I started to delve deeper into this survey and asked what was the average number of inquiries on a weekly basis that people was doing for homeowners. And it worked out on average, some bigger companies, some smaller, but out of 89 businesses, they were doing 12 quotes, estimates on average, so home visits to clients. Out of those 12, how many became paying customers? Well, there was 30% of people became a paying customer, which is not bad. 4 out of 12 were becoming paid customers. So then I looked into how much time do people spend doing a quote. Now, including traveling and seeing the client coming back, typing up this bid and sending it out, the average came out around around 2 hours, which I think is wildly underestimated. To actually travel, spend time with a client, travel back to your office and type something up and send it to the client. Either way, I figured that 8 of the 12 bids that was being done, or the quotes that were being done, were going to nothing. And if you averaged out at 2 hours each one, that was working out at something like 16 hours a week that people were spending on free quoting that was actually getting them no work. And the biggest problem that most business owners have is that they don't have time to complete everything. So I was thinking, well, 16 hours doing free quoting, and I feel that's widely underestimated. Maybe the problem's actually there and not in the teams that they had. And when you add all of that up over a year, it worked out at something like 92 days per year that people were spending with clients that was never going to, with prospects that was never going to become clients. So then I followed that up with clients, which was really interested me. 100% of people went and did a free quote, but only 77.5% of people would follow up on that quote afterwards. So my odds are higher the longer that I stay in the game. What got really interesting is only 58.4% of people would follow up a second time. So during this survey, I asked, how much time does it actually take to do a follow-up? And the average came out at 30 seconds. So I was like, okay, so people are spending 2 hours doing a free quote, but they're not prepared to spend 30 seconds to do a follow-up, or most people are going to quit after 1 minute. So it was like a bit of fun. But to me, it was like, I'm okay spending 2 hours with people, but I'm not going to spend 2 hours, 1 minute. They can forget that. So I was like, this is really interesting. So I go a little bit deeper. I found that only 7% of people were prepared to follow up a third time. So for me, with competitors, I just felt that I had 93% more chance of getting a job if I followed up 3 times, or more to the point, if I followed up once more than everybody else. So 93% of people were happy to go and, service a cold lead, but not follow up something. So that got me really thinking, well, what is the real problem here? Because the current leads, people are spending, around 4 minutes maximum. When we went into it, it was about 4 minutes maximum following up on their current leads. But they'll spend 2 to 3 hours with new leads and then be obsessed with getting more leads. So people's focus is on, I need more leads. I don't have time to service the more leads, but they're doing nothing with their current leads. So I wondered what that might be, what the problem might be there. So I went into pricing. So do you ever price work and it's over the person's ideal budget? So 87.6% of people said that the prices were over the ideal budget and the rest of them lied, right? So there must be a better way, was my thinking. There must be a better way to eliminate all of this time and underpricing, because the pricing part comes right at the end. So if you're overpricing at the end, you've put a lot of work in to find that out. So I made a startling discovery. I need for dramatic effect. Objection handling in all of these scenarios happens at the beginning, not at the end. At the end, it's a kind of a recovery, which is where the price discounting starts to happen. And now I'm starting to compete on prices. So I took this a little bit further. Why avoid the price objection? Well, people are worried about being too expensive. So they're avoiding that from the outset. And they're hoping that throughout the process, they're going to convince somebody to buy something. And I think it's a much bigger number than this, but 52.8% of people said that they had an anxiety when they delivered a price to clients or to customers or prospects. And the other 47.2%, I would say, are probably not telling the truth, because whether you want the project or whether you're worried about losing the project, there's always an element of anxiety to delivering the prices. So moving that on, I asked, do you answer the phone yourself? And almost 90% of people, contractors, answer their cell phones or their office phones themselves, which got me realizing that's what, and I kind of worked it all out, that front end decision starts on the telephone to do a free quote or to go and not talk about pricing at that point because of the anxiety that's created on it. And then people stopped at that point making that conscious decision to actually qualify people out and qualified them in. And that created this knock-on effect, this avalanche effect of all of the time created in their business. And I went through this with several businesses to find this out. And I created this system for landscapers, but it's now stretched out into various different trades where you can turn quotes into cash by attracting better customers. And this is going to be my gift to the people listening and watching after this presentation. So I figured out there were 7 crucial steps into this process. The first thing is the advertising. What we've done is created a lead form advertising through Facebook. We can spend about £25 a day to get this to work. But that advertising part has to be right. And then you've got the inquiry, the consultation, the survey. So actually going out and taking measurements and discussing with the client what it is that they want. There's a feasibility element to this. There's a reveal, which is showing the final project and going through all of the designs. And then the proposal part and how the proposal is presented to a client. So if we look at this a little bit deeper, the advertising, the inquiry, the consultation is where all of the time constraints start with the decision that's made at this point. What we did is we eliminated the free part here. So we got from the consultation, the next bit, the minute that you leave the office or your vehicle or your home office or whatever it is that you're running your business from, that point there is where you start to work. And if you leave the office at that point, having agreed to do that for free, that's where you start that whole process, that whole avalanche of doing free work. The next part where all of the sales were won and lost were in this feasibility part. So people were waiting right up until the proposal to get the rejection. The rejections happen here, and it's avoidable because the sale is actually made in feasibility. I call that conveyor belt method. And if I look at this, there's different points between each one of these steps in the process: the advertising, inquiry, consultation, survey, the feasibility reveal, and then the proposal. And it's what we do in those moments there and the way we talk about finances that really make the biggest difference. Because if we're anchoring the pricing throughout here and instead of avoiding being rejected, we're actually going for those no's, we're actually facing up to that rejection, we save ourselves so much time because we can anchor our sale throughout. So objection handling is done throughout the process, not at the end, but all of the rejection is done at the end if you don't follow this simple process. And to make that work, you have to fill this funnel at the top. So the 50% of people I've found through survey research and doing all of work with clients, 50% of people that are searching for these local services by approximately 12 months or later after searching. The other 45% are in that kind of 6 to 9 months after they've searched, they'll buy, and the other 5% are looking to buy now. So you've got to fill this funnel. And if you think of Google Ads as an example, 50% are doing broad search, 45% are doing phrase match, and the other 5% are doing exact match. And the cost of that, what worked out in time and advertising spend, was about £1,000. And then it's 10 times, then it goes to 110 times less, and then to £10 to fill up the funnel at the top. Now, what we did through a nurturing process is we were spending 1,000 on the top of the funnel. And then by the time 12 months come round, obviously you're getting much more for your money than you would be if you was trying to go after clients now. And the reason people were going after clients now is because they wasn't qualifying them. So they would get through the whole process, which would take on average between 3 and 5 weeks, and then they would be rejected. So not only was the rejection like, oh, it's disappointment because I've not got the project that I wanted, there's also an element of this that there's the lead time that was 3 to 5 weeks. So every time you got rejected, it put you back 5 weeks. So we had to go and fix that. So what we worked out from this is that once you know your profit margins here, if you've got a profit margin of 25%, you can increase your prices by 10%, and you can afford to lose 29% of the work that you are currently doing in your diary. So you can reduce down your time by 30% just by adding 10% increase on a 25% margin. And then 20% and 30%. If you increase your price by 30%, you could save 55% of your time. So you wouldn't, anybody that we've worked with when we've put this process into place have never lost half of their bids that they've gone for, even with the price increases and the fact that they don't do anything for free. So the less you sell, the more you make. And that's kind of like the more with less things starts to work. So my coach who introduced me to marketing said that business was simple, but easy, but it isn't easy. It's actually simple. So my name is Barry Randall, and I've kind of invested maybe 500,000 in my personal education to discover this free quoting, eliminating free quoting thing, the conveyor belt method that I like to call it. By doing that, it's enabled me to get off the tools as a contractor and actually build several 7-figure businesses. I've also got a 6-figure mentoring business, and I've written 5 books on the topic of helping small businesses, specifically in the landscaping industry, to develop their businesses. I kind of grew up on this, in a real working class kind of area, and I was a bit of an academic disaster. But what I was really good at is kind of rolling my sleeves up and getting the work done. So I feel like I've gone and developed this thing so I can help many other businesses now with their processes. And I want to give you 3 examples of how this works, because it's all good, me telling you that this process is really good, but it'd be better if I show you a few examples of clients. So this is a guy called Scott Taylor. Scott was working on the TV in the UK. He was a TV, I won't say he was a star, but he's a TV personality in the UK. He has a garden design, build and maintenance business, and he was charging only £300 to £500 for designs. He was kind of selling, project managing. His team were a bit inefficient on most projects, and he started to lose money every month. And then he got told that he needs to throw money at Google Ads, which was something he didn't need to do. And then he also got told by his web company that he needs a shiny new website. Now, when I spoke to Scott, his only target was to make £10,000 per month. So the intervention that we had when we looked at his business was that too many people said yes to those low pricing points at the beginning. So he was doing a lot of free quotes to get to the £300 to £500 design packages. So we created a design package and some positioning that actually increased these designs from 300 to 500 to 3,000 and 6,000, just 2 packages, really simple, no layered stuff in there. It was just 2 packages. We added qualification in to eliminate his free quotes. And all we did was ran £10 per day lead form Facebook campaign to fill the top of the funnel. And there was no website yet. So the result of that was a message that Scott had sent to me saying that, the end number for January basically was 30K in design fees and another 6K in design fees that hadn't yet converted. There was 4K in project management, 2K in some markup suppliers. And at the bottom, there was a garden assessment report. So we changed free quote into a garden assessment report, which allowed him to clients to pay for the positioning of it. And that was kind of the conveyor belt method. So the second example, a guy called Darren who come to me, was struggling. And there was a couple of things that stood out for me when he sent this message. He said that he had close to 80 leads every single month in his business. And the problem with, obviously from what I've already shared so far today, the leads were an issue, but his other big issue was that he said he had clowns working for his business. I obviously asked him who was the clown that hired them. So we went in, and this is how his business was. It was design and build company. It had time challenges with poor performing team. He was doing free quotes for up to 80 leads a month, working 16 hours a day, and he wanted out of his business after years of stress for low profit. And his target was just to sell his business and move to Spain. So the intervention happened because he had those 80 leads, and we looked at those 80 leads and we said that you're not servicing 80 leads effectively. We need to put something in place. So we added in the qualification to eliminate the free quotes, the conveyor belt method. And we used all of that time that he'd saved on quoting on the front end to manage the team more effectively. And the result of that was that he sent me a nice message saying, just a text to say that the company sale went through. So after 9 months, he turned his struggling business around into £700,000 sale with 10% of any future sale. And the guy moved to Spain. So I protected his wife's name, but 100% could have done this without the intervention. And then the really important thing here is we changed things for him, but he changed it for his family. So that was really cool. This final example here is a guy called Michael who messaged me over Christmas, and he said, "Can you remember when I sold my house to pay my tax bill in the UK, the HMRC here, he had a VAT bill and he had to pay that." I said, "Yeah, I remember that." He said, "Well, I've just bought myself a Ferrari because my accountant said that I'm going to make 900K net profit this year." And this is in parked beside one of his old vehicles that he gave to his dad on a small house that his parents owned. He said, "The great thing is that I bought my parents the house and I'm allowing them to live in it so that they can retire." So that was pretty cool. So he had a nationwide pond installation company, managing everything, 17 on-site employees, doing lots of free quotes nationwide. So he was up at 4 a.m. in the morning and he was traveling around till late in the evening, and he had to sell his house to pay his VAT bill. And he had this wild target of growing to 2 million in annual revenue. And people get obsessed with growing revenue when the reality is you want to grow profit. So the intervention came with a drive to Preston, which ironically I've done myself today, and it was a 7-hour round trip. So he was off to see a client to do a 7-hour round trip to present a design to this client. And I said, "Does the client understand how much this is going to be when you see them?" And he said, "No, I've not spoken to them yet." I said, "Well, maybe you should do that." So he called them, told them that the project would be 100,000 and they had 25,000 budget, saved himself 7 hours. So from that point, we implemented that qualification and what became the feasibility call, where we call them prior to presenting the design, and that's done in a specific way, following a specific script. We implemented design fees, and that reduced his quoting time by 50%, and here's the result. It looks like we might do 1 million in sales this month, bearing in mind the business did 500,000 that first year and lost 100K. And confirmation on 600K, and then the rest, obviously, you can see there, 70K, another possible 310. So there's a few examples of, what works if you implement this free quote and eliminating free quoting at the beginning of your business. And this worked for many businesses, and obviously it's changed the way that I've done business since, and certainly turned my life around. So these are the books that I've built out this like an overview of the system in two different parts. The first one's just attracting better customers. And this builds an advertising sub base, and a sub base is something that you'd put down under a patio. And it eliminates time wasters and attracts serious customers. Now, half of the time, I speak to clients and their big challenge is that they get tire kickers or time wasters. The reality is, for every single person in business, we choose whether we waste our time or not. A client's got no control over whether they waste our time. We have complete control over whether we're prepared to do that. And that happens by turning those quotes, those free quotes, those free bids, estimates, whatever it may be, into a process where that becomes a paid survey, a paid garden assessment report. There's all things that you could decide to call this thing. I've worked with air conditioning, HVAC companies, electrical contractors, building contractors, heating engineers, solar engineers, landscape gardeners, all manner of businesses that have implemented this process into their business, and it's helped them save time, energy, and money, and stop them doing free quotes for the wrong customers. So that was just a really quick run through of how this process works. And as I said, it's going to be my gift to you after this presentation, a copy of both of these books.
Well, Barry, that's really, really amazing. And on top of the process, the ability, your ability to help these business owners change their perspective on what they do and show them that they don't have to continue doing it the way everyone else is doing, and really helping getting through that mental shift. I don't want that to get minimized, because I think people that are in this position that might be doing a free quote or attracting the wrong customers or feel like they're spinning their wheels, they think that it's a process issue. But so many times we find when we're working with clients that it starts with their own perspectives. Could you kind of talk a little bit more about how you get those owners to kind of flip that switch?
Yeah, interesting, because there's all different personality types, as we know, and they cross over. So some people just get it really quickly and understand that, they listen to what you say and they implement it. Other people, it takes a long time to get them to understand that they're doing all of this work for free. But typically how I'd start this is I would get them to call their clients before they go to see them with their final proposal, and start to understand that you're just about to go and see this client. And often, Chuck, they're about to see a client and totally embarrass the client at this point, because this is the most position that I took it from as a man with a wife. I was like, when I'm getting a project done in my own property, and this is how I explain it to a client, I get a project done in my own property. We were all excited about this project. My wife's like, really wants this new kitchen or whatever it may be. And she's really excited by it. And I'm like, baby, I'm going to get you this, whatever it takes. They come back and the quote is like 5 times more than I can possibly afford. Like, I feel less of a man in that moment because I can't afford to do what I just promised my wife that I was going to do. So I help them see that actually what they're doing is doing the client, they're not doing the client a disservice. They're doing them a service by telling them early what the pricing should be, because not only are they embarrassing themselves, they're embarrassing the client in that moment as well. Usually that helps if they think that the client's going to have a benefit from it.
That makes sense. I think that a lot of companies originally integrate the free estimate or free quote at the forefront as an offer because they see it during their marketing research, or maybe their advertising agency sees it during the marketing research process. And then to be in line with their level of competition, they offer the free quote just because it's become this standard. So in regards to that, what are you adjusting on the forefront for the offer? Instead of saying free quote, in most cases, what are you replacing that with?
The variety of things. So I've done like a 14-day remodeling survey. a garden assessment report, a garden valuation report. It's still a free quote. Sorry, it's still a quote, but it's just packaged in a different way.
Yeah.
Still go out, do exactly the same things, go and meet the client, measure the space, take a list of details down, and then go back to them with a price for the project afterwards. But the key thing that I've done to help clients and that clients have implemented is that we've just created a package. Because if you already know what you want done, like a serious client already knows that they want a design for kitchen or garden or whatever it may be, their yard, then why not just hurry up and get the design done? Because you're going to have to pay it anyway. You're just wasting time, really, me coming around and having a look if you're sure about it already. So what we do is we get them to complete Google Forms prior to any call, and then from the call we present to them the design packages that they could choose from. And then basically, I don't know if there's any magic, really. I think it's just, as Chuck said before, it's just understanding that what you bring is of value, and that you shouldn't be doing it for free. So there is a process to this, but I don't particularly think it's magic in any way. I just think it's being brave enough to say, my service is worth more than free.
Yeah, I think it's a mindset shift. And
it's 100%
for both parties, though, not for just the business and the integrator, but for the consumer as well. When they're going through that process, I think that if they don't, initially see the free home estimate, the free quote, and they see a different label per se on that, I think that it just comes off differently. It comes off more unique, but it also doesn't diminish the value of the potential services being offered. And I think it's a mindset shift for both parties.
Well, it turns into a higher perceived value.
Yeah.
Because
100%.
You're helping the prospect or the customer understand that there's value in the expertise and the work that goes into those upfront design works or assessment or time that it takes to get out there and design that from.
Yeah, and then the step two.
So one of the interesting thing with that is the right level of client. I've found, again, this is through years of repetition, the client that's really serious and proactive, they actually want to pay something to guarantee that you are going to come, because contractors have got a bad name for booking an appointment while they're driving along with their cell phone attached to their ear and they're trying to turn the radio on and stuff like that. They say, yeah, I'll be there at 5 p.m. and they don't come.
Yeah.
So a homeowner just feels so much more secure that you are coming. And it doesn't matter. Like we've sold these for $25K on the front end. And it really doesn't matter if it's $25K or $1. As long as you're positioning the service that you're going to provide is worth something. That's the key thing here. So when I first helped people, I just going back to your earlier question, I say, well, why not just charge $200 and say, when you go ahead with a project, you get the $200 back.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that helps them do the first bit. What's the amazing transformation that people have is the first time that they do that 200 and they have to give it back, they're like, no way, I don't want to give it back. It's worth way more than that, So you only have to do it once. That's the key thing. It's like, how do you get somebody just to do it once and get paid? And then they'll never want to do it for free ever again.
Right, because all of a sudden their memory gets very short and they don't remember that last week you went out on 16 calls and did the same thing for free. Yeah. But you're so right. It's that once it's almost the shark's first taste of blood, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, that worked. Yes, I want to continue to keep doing that.
Yeah. But it's always that one that they do get from all of the free quotes that stops them like giving up this habit that they've got. They say, but everything I've done before this, and I'm like sometimes I say to the client was on a call doing my training a week or so ago, and he goes, well, I understand what you're saying, but we do sell work. I said, okay, how much work did you sell last year? He said 500K. And I said, and you're working like 60 hours a week. I did over 5 million using my process. Do you want to use my process or do you want to use your process?
Yeah.
You know, it was like, let's use yours. I was like, good, smart choice.
Smart choice. Yeah.
So I look at this from a marketer's perspective. From the initial point of contact, basically your offer, there's just a small shift in the I would say the label there of the offer. The offer itself isn't too much different. It's just the wording and the copywriting around that. So the conversion rates stay the same. The cost per lead roughly stays the same. But then you're adding in on that second step, the feasibility call, and then basically enhancing the qualification process, correct?
Correct. Yeah, because throughout that process, like, you know, the contractors have got this thing where they're going to show the client all this amazing design work and then reveal the price at the end, and the client's going to magically just fall into their hands like, you know, melt like butter. And I'm like, all the way through that process, the client, you're showing them the designs, you're showing them the technical drawings that they don't care about, but you're showing them anyway. And all that they're thinking is, this looks great, but I wonder how much my investment's going to be on this. Yeah. So I'm like, why not just show? So what we do is we show them the price first. They go, oh, and then you go, let me just show you what's included. Because now they want to know what's included because they've seen the price. When they're just looking for the price, they don't even look at what's included. Mm-hmm. So they skim through what's included to see the price and go, I can't justify that. Once you show them the price, now I want to justify it. So it's just a reverse psychology on that, but it works, you know.
Yeah,
so.
It gives you the opportunity to build up that value to the price that you've revealed to them. Sure. And so you can do here's the design piece that has an individual value of this. Here's this piece of the work. Here's an irrigation piece or whatever and basically do the old value stack and say, see, you're going to get 45,000 worth of services, but this proposal now is only 25. So it gives a definite opportunity to reframe that price for them.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
You've got several test closes throughout this process, you know, rather than waiting right till the end, giving a price and then going, oh, the client's unrealistic. I was like, no, the client's not unrealistic. You just wasted a hell of a lot of your time, 3 to 5 weeks, when you could have I said, when did you know? I knew the first time I seen them. Why not tell them then? You know, I needed to build up the value. Like, people don't care. Like, they want to know how much it's going to cost, how long it's going to take. And if you're standing in their yard, then they've already qualified you as the person that they want to do it. So just kind of give the client what they need. So it's interesting, the budget thing, Chuck, Ken, the budget part for how do I get a budget out of a client when they won't give me a budget? So I'm like, okay, here's how I would get a budget out of a client. How much do you want to invest in this? They say, I don't know. Say, how about 100,000? They go, I was thinking 20. I go, okay, so we've got budget.
There you go.
Like, as soon as you put a number in front of them, they'll reveal what they was thinking of spending.
Right. That's so smart.
Yeah, that is.
What I found from clients is that most of the time they don't reveal the budget because they're embarrassed it might be too small.
It is really interesting, though, the entire concept of shifting around or just really rearranging the sales process. The interesting thing that you said before was the big reveal, right? And I think that's so in alignment. We've used systems and proposal systems before, and we're really pushing this value, and then you give them the proposal, and I can see page by page how much time they spend on each page.
Right.
And you can see that it's like page 1, where it's like the cover page, which basically implements 0 type of content or just no value at all. There's like 30 seconds because they open it and they stand there. And then they scroll past nearly everything else. They go right to the pricing page and they spend 5 minutes on that page where they're basically just observing the big reveal. That's all they're doing. And they're trying to draw a consensus around whether that's in alignment with their budget, where we should have really flipped the script and presented that value at the front or with the pricing at the front. And then comes all of the value and all of the pieces to the puzzle.
Sure. Yeah, I guess if you go in a car showroom and you go and pick out a car, it's got a price on it, and now I'm prepared to look at all the features that I can add to it, whatever.
Yeah.
But if you it's difficult, and the contractors can't get their head around it, because the real issue is that they've just got an anxiety about talking about money, because they'll say, the client said, oh, this has got to be a low, like cheap as a word. This needs to be really cheap. And I'm like, well, that cheap might be $1 million. Like, like you've just assumed that it's 5,000. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
to
no,
get these guys to change their mindset.
Your insight and the research and development process that you have implemented into all of this is so unique, and it's so valuable to every single business. It really doesn't matter if it's a home service business or if it's a retail business. I think every business needs this type of insight and value to understand the process of converting more leads, but at the end of the day, being more efficient in their sales process.
Right. And helping our teams understand the reason why we're doing what we're doing and why it's done in a specific order, in a specific way, and that each of these steps are good for the company, but it's better for them, especially with our frontline salespeople, that, the more that you can qualify up front and get to the no faster, because especially newer, younger salespeople, they're afraid of the no. I'm like, no, we want to get there as fast as possible so that you can then get to the next, yes. So
no wasting time.
Yeah, exactly. So Barry, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been so really insightful and a really fresh kind of perspective on delivering the value in the sales process, especially in the in your area of expertise in home services. But as Ken said, it is so widely applicable to so many places. We're going to make sure on our landing page that all of the links to all of the resources are available. So if they didn't catch them through the presentation, we'll have those there so that everybody can go take you up on your very generous offer of your books. So the thing that I like to do as we get ready to sign off here is ask you, what's the one big thought or takeaway that our guests you're hoping our guests leave with?
Clearly, the big thing for me is that, to just overcome that thing or that thought that people are wasting your time, and just realize that you're the one wasting your time.
100%. That couldn't have said it better myself. Again, Barry Randall, thank you so much for joining us here on the Small Business Summit.
Thank you, Barry. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Take care.